fire element into four sets of meridians. Some of the operations that you see over in China, like in Shanghai Medical Research World, you see a man lying down covered like a pincushion, and he's having open brain surgery, and meanwhile conversing with the nurse, telling her he wants a cup of tea, and also telling the person who's cutting out various parts of his brain because of the illness he's got, what he's experiencing when they're probing the brain. That's possible in the West now, under local anaesthetic. It's been going on in China for some 1,000 years, or something like that. In the middle, you have these two meridians, the governor and the conception vessel. The conception vessel starts at the bottom of the lip, goes over the navel, and down to the anus. And then the other meridian is the governor meridian, which goes again around the midline of the body, from the top lip over the top of the head, down the spine to the anus again. So you have these two central meridians that are not really meridians, they're called vessels. They're very important to the functioning of the body. One, as you can see, is called the governor, which obviously relates to the brain and the spine. The other one, conception, relates to the navel and to the womb and what have you. Again, in the Sanskrit Hebrew school, this conception meridian, particularly the navel, relates to the red bindu, and this relates to the female. And the white bindu in the head relates to the male. You notice Shiva would be the ruler of this particular group. We've got the same signification of fire, earth, air and water. You can put metal there as well for water and wood. You can see a little man here. Remember the conception meridian? Well, it's running from the top, the bottom lip down to the anus. Here we have the place of Suna, which is a female place, and then up here, I'm using Norse goddesses now. I've jumped across from Asia to talk about the Norse traditions, which the Christians tried to wipe out, but they didn't get as far as Iceland. When they got as far as Iceland, they didn't get as far as Iceland, so the Icelandic sagas came back to us in a written form, and people could read them. Well, I say Christians, but church authorities of the time. Here we have the conception meridian written in the Norse tradition as Suna, and here we have the moon, which is significant of the head and the brain, going back also down into the spine as Mani. This is where we derive the names Sunday and Monday from. Going up to the top, we have this fire meridian again, which is related to the god of war, Chu, and related to the day Tuesday. Going down here, following the line of a pentagram, we have the water element and Woden, which relates to Wednesday. Going across here, we have the earth element relating to Thor and Thursday. Across to Freya, who's the goddess relating to all things to do with birthing and conception. And some people think the whole thing is a corruption when you have Rita and Brig and various other ways of pronouncing this word. We have Friday, and moving down to this one we have Saturday relating to Saturn. Now if you notice, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Norse gods and goddesses, and then, as we all do, we use this planet on the end. Anybody tell me why we use this planet? Well, there's no reason really. Why should you use 6 Norse gods and goddesses and then use a planet at the end? You can find the 5 visible planets around the sun and the moon, making 7. But there's absolutely no reason why you should suddenly stop using this one on Saturday. Let's just look a little bit deeper into the the symbolism here. Remember there were 4 meridians here, so you can double the people here. In the Norse tradition you have the warriors were a spear youth and a shield maiden. They were often going into battle tied together. You can look at it, you can find it in the Icelandic sagas. The girl would have a small sword and a shield, and as she was tied to her brother would strike the blow with his spear or his sword, and she would then pull back his striking arm so he could make another blow. Meanwhile, with her small sword, she's trying to stab the vitals of the man. You can find this. You can find it written in the Icelandic sagas, but it's mostly when mistakes happen and the brother kills his sister by mistake. Sounds a bit bloody. We're talking about the spear youth and the shield maiden area of fire element here. 2 meridians, remember, in the Chinese, going down to here. Going down, following the spear youth down, we have this female here who represents the next generation up. So we have young person, then the female of middle age or the birther. We have shield maiden, the young person, and then the husband. Going down again, each side you have old Father Time here, the grandfather, and on this side the missing one, which I think was taken out by, I imagine, the church authorities. Again, is Old Mother Time. So you have this complete ability to visualize many types of relationships in this quite simple diagram, with a person standing in the middle. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Nana's Day. The one that, put your hand up if you've said Nana in the description of your grandmother. Yeah, and you're typical of people from England, that's the majority of the audience. You're typical of people from England as far as Serbia, and if you include Nonna in Italy, then you're talking about way down in the Mediterranean as well. That's the missing term. If you look in the Icelandic sagas, Nana dies on the ship of Baldur, because Baldur represents sunlight, and as the sunrise comes up, the burning ship, Nana is dying because Saturday, the day dies, and Sunday appears, the days of the week. By way of introduction, here we have a famous. It used to be on news at 10. I remember when I was a young boy, you can see it all over the place. They use it all the time. It's a famous drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, or at least my sketch of it. The whole thing is based on a book by Vitruvius about 1200, 1300 years before, no, 1400 years before Da Vinci turned up. He said that if you can draw a human being. He was writing on architecture to one of the Caesars of the time, and he was describing various examples of sacred geometry, and he particularly was interested in this. It caused a furor. The book by Vitruvius came out of the monasteries in about the 12th century, and eventually when Gutenberg got himself into gear, they started to print up copies of this. Meanwhile, Da Vinci was illustrating a book by Pacioli, his teacher, called Divine Proporzioni, which in English would be the divine proportion. So even his teacher was writing a book about pentagrams. And you can make out the general figure of a pentagram, somewhat like the day of the week, the days of the week that we were just looking at